Hey guys, this week I want to talk about simply choosing your team. And when I say your team, I mean specifically your agent and your lender, because those two are going to be the most crucial and critical people throughout the whole process. Um, so you have to choose wisely. You know, we all know friends who are real estate agents or friends who just got their license. And don't get me wrong, I was one of them at one point. But um, it's also when it comes to buying a house, renting an apartment, by all means, you can go with any stranger or any person off the street that you like. But when it comes to purchasing, I would say a couple of the biggest things you want to look for are experience. So how long has this person been a real estate? So first we're going to talk about the agent, then we'll go into the lender. So how long has this person been doing real estate? Is real estate their only job? So again, I'm the person, I like having multiple jobs, but am I the best person to necessarily sell someone a house? No. But do I know a person who is better off than me? Yes. So you don't want someone who is, real estate agent on Sunday and Saturday, and then they're, doing whatever during the week. It's just a difference there in terms of like availability. I will say your lender and your agent. So for the entire closing process, which is typically 30 to 45 days, typically 30, I'd say. Like banks move super quick now, title gets cleared quick. So typically 30 days, but over that 30-day process, you're going to be speaking to these two individuals probably almost every day. So you want someone who you feel comfortable with. You want someone that you can call on a Sunday at 8 o'clock at night and not feel bad. So you definitely want someone who's available, who this is their only job. This is what they do. So as far as agents are concerned, it's also important to know what you're buying and what that person's expertise is. So for me right now, I'm looking for an investment property. That's not the same person that I would call for my house. It's kind of two separate different things, because that person's going to have a different level of expertise. They're going to have a different lender for you. So you definitely want to, if you know, okay, I'm buying a house, let's say in this specific area. So like, I'd say for Baltimore related people, if you're buying a house in Baltimore City versus the county, you may want to sort of, granted it's kind of the same, but it's the same thing as like Brooklyn and New York. Like you would want an agent that's more so based in Brooklyn. So I have a slew of friends who are agents, whether they be in Brooklyn, or whether they're in Baltimore. So if anyone ever needs that connection, feel free to reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with whom I think would probably be the best fit for what you're looking for. I've had a lot of calls like that this week of just like, hey, I'm looking to do this, like who should I talk to? And it's like, oh, here's a friend of mine. I think you guys, I think you'd be in good hands. I'd also say in terms of, a lot of times we're on the internet and you look at a house and you say, oh, it says contact this agent, and you call the agent, and then next thing you know, he's like, well, in case you don't like this one, I have XYZ, and then you start looking. I'm not saying that that's not a good approach, but all I'm saying is you want someone that has your best interest. So whether that be through a referral, whether that be from someone whether that be through a family friend, there's sort of a level of trust there, and there's a level of, okay, this person isn't just trying to rush and sell me a house. This person actually, he knows my grandmother. So he's not gonna, it's that kind of approach there, I'd say. So I would just say vet your real estate agent. I think a lot of times you may go out with one agent and you feel like you're married to them. Unless you've signed the doc. I'm not saying to jump around. I'm not saying that by all means. But what I am saying is if it's a one-off house that you go to see, you are not married to that agent unless you signed the document saying such. But so yeah, be leery of signing documents. Sometimes they'll say, oh, we need to do an exclusive. And if that's someone you trust, then by all means do it. And if you've built to that level of trust, then go for it. But if it's just if it's somebody you just saw online, you went to see it, and they want you to sign documents, and if you're not trying to purchase that house that you looked at, then you can just keep it moving. One thing I think also, now that I'm talking this out, I think it's important to note that, let's say you see a house online with Tom, and you're like, okay, I like this house, but I don't really like Tom. I'm gonna call Jerry. So then you start seeing houses with Jerry, and then you say to Jerry, oh hey, I saw this house with Tom before and I really liked it. Jerry is not legally allowed to sell you that house without looping Tom back in and forming some sort of agreement. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Like, you can't, if you saw a house with one person and you loved it, that's the person you need to call. Because you can't just say, oh, I have this friend over here, maybe that's really shady real estate business, and you just don't want to put yourself in the middle of that. So that's one thing to note. So I would say, like, for me, what worked best with my agent, I was lucky, I went with a friend. I would say just reach out as soon as you're in the planning phases, because what's kind of amazing about it, the agent is kind of going to propel you really quickly. That's what they do. So, but in a good way. So, like, I went to have just a preliminary conversation with my friend, just like, hey, I'm thinking about buying, and next thing I know, she was like, you need to get pre-approved. And I got pre-approved that same day, and then we started looking like 3 days later. So I will say that if you're not ready, just keep doing your research. But, it's nothing wrong with having a conversation with somebody, but just know that their job is to sell you a house, not to be a consultant. So call them, when you're on the closer to being ready side. So yeah, I got lucky with my agent. She was a friend. I got pre-approved that same day. We started looking that following weekend, and I didn't plan technically to purchase until 6 months down the line. But once I got pre-approved for the amount that I got pre-approved for, I was like, oh wait, I thought I had to get my credit up. I thought I had to do X, Y, Z, and it was just like, no, like the bank deems you ready now, so go for it. So back to the team aspect, your lender, it's good to come from your agent. So I was referred to my lender from my agent, and that also brings a level of trust, because that agent needs to work with that lender very closely. So if they already have a relationship, that's going to make that process just go smoother. And then again, it's that level of trust. So when I would start calling my lender, he's like, oh, Sierra, her name, my real estate agent was Sierra. He's like, oh, Sierra raves about you. Like, like, what do you need? Like, I remember I felt bad calling him because it was like a Sunday at like 6. And he was like, you can call me anytime you want. Like, that's how lenders move. Like, they are, like, I don't think they ever take time off. I think they just are like calling banks and getting interest rates all day. I don't know. So I would say to get a lender through your agent. I would also say it kind of goes back to knowing who your agent and what their expertise is. For example, when I went to look at an investment property this week, and I called my specific investment property agent. He took me to see the property, and I liked it. And he's like, "Oh, there's this lender you have to talk to. He only does investment properties." Like, so that's why I say, like, you have to know who your agent is and trust them, because it's good to have your agent refer your lender. Because they will know what you're looking for. They'll know, what you can afford and what you can't afford. So I would say to get your lender referred to yourself through your agent. And then I think at one point I wanted to talk about interest rates. So interest rates seem like this, I don't know, it just seems kind of confusing, but the interest rates come out every day. They change, they fluctuate. Not too crazy. And I was having this conversation with someone. It's not like, how when you hear, oh, flights are cheaper on Tuesday, let me go look that up. I don't even know if that's true or not. But it's not that that interest rates are something where it's like, oh, let me wait till Wednesday. It's not like that. It's just they fluctuate based on the market and other things way beyond my pay grade. Um, so right now, interest rates are like really low. They are, I believe, like 3.75, 3.8. When I bought it was 4.75. And what you want to know about interest rates is one, you can negotiate them a bit. So, like, oh, and this is another thing. You want to get two quotes. When you're first sourcing out lenders, it doesn't hurt to get a second quote. So in my case, I got one quote from the person that my friend referred me, and then I had another quote from some lady. I don't even know how I got her information. So anyway, she quoted me at, I think, like 4.875, and then the other lender quoted me at 4.75. That little, not even a full point, doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is. So think about your credit card, right? Like your credit card, you want a 0% interest rate. That's what everyone wants. That's why you know, what is it called? Combined balances, balance transfers, so you can get that 0% interest rate. If you know from credit card history, that interest rate can kill you. So it's kind of the same concept as your credit card. Like it's literally a fee for them to loan you the money. So one thing I would say back to my point, I guess, you definitely want to have two lenders because you want to see if someone has a lower interest rate. And then there's also something where people will like buy down the interest rate. I can't really speak on that, but your lender and your agent will know. I did not do that. It requires, I think, putting down like a little more money, but then you get a smaller interest rate, which in theory would make sense because what's so interesting about a home is that, like, so my house costs $189, but if I took 30 years to pay it off, my house would actually cost me probably about $300,000, maybe more, because of that interest, because of the fees, because of the bank loaning you the money. But even though that sounds bad, $300,000, it's still much better than renting because my mortgage is so cheap that it's like apples to apples, but you're getting a long-term investment, you're getting the ability to refinance, you're getting long-term equity, you're getting generational wealth that you can pass down to your family. So obviously it's like a no-brainer. So just be mindful of the interest rates. You definitely want to buy when they are low. But if you don't, so I bought when it was 4.875. I refinanced in December because interest rate, and had I known Corona was going to happen, I probably would have waited, but who would have known that? But so when I refinanced, it went down a point because that's what the current interest rates were, and my mortgage, and then there was like an error, but my mortgage, I ended up saving over $200 a month alone, just off the top, because of that point. That one point saved me $200 over 30 years. So that's how impactful the points are, that interest rate. So you definitely want to, I wouldn't think you need to know much more about interest rates. Like I didn't study, it's not more complicated than that. It's just your interest rate is what it is, you have to pay it. But one thing they say too, I've heard, is that if you make an extra mortgage payment a year, that cuts down like 7 years on the life of your mortgage. So what that means is the length of time, because if you make one payment just towards your interest, that shaves off years off of that 30 that you were originally looking at. So it's little tricks like that your lender will tell you. It's little tricks like, well, that's kind of the only trick that I really know of that I can think of. But I definitely say, so just to summarize and wrap this up, your agent, you want it to be someone you know and you trust. If not, have someone that you know and trust refer you to someone. Get a referral to a lender from your agent, maybe even get two, or if you know someone else that has a house, just say, hey, who was your lender? And then you just call them. Oh, one thing else I want to mention, the good thing about when you're going through the lending process, you have like a 30-day span where you won't get any hard, like you get one hard inquiry the first time you apply with someone, but after that there won't be any hard inquiries for 30 days, because they know that you need to shop around. They know that you're going to be applying for, like, you don't want to get a new credit card or anything, but I'm just saying they know that it's going to be hard inquiries on your account throughout this process. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to apply to another lender, they're going to do another inquiry. It's not like that. So I would say that is my spiel on your agent and your lender. Choose wisely. And next week we will discuss, I'm trying to think of where we are in the process. Next week we're in the process of looking at houses. So I have a lot of good tips. There's a lot of shady things people do to kind of hide issues in their house. And I will say something that I managed to do amazingly well. I chose a house that I don't have a lot of issues. Like, I hear some people who are like, oh, or you go to somebody's house and they moved in a year ago, but like it's 1,000,000 degrees, and it's like, well, what's going on there? Like, so I definitely have some good tips for you guys on how to, and then because I work in construction, I definitely have some pointers on how to choose. Like, a lot of times they try to, market as something that's so brand new, but you got to look behind, you got to see behind what they're trying to mask sometimes. So I thank you guys. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay strong. I love you all. Bye.